Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're watching AMTV Alternative Media Television Live. Thank you for bearing with me. We've got some pretty bombshell stories today. None of this I'm airing public at the moment. Didn't even tweet, Facebook, any of this content. You're only going to get it here first, on demand, Alternative Media Television Live, for a reason. A number of reasons, actually. Number one, nobody's talking about it. I'll be digging in very deep into the rabbit hole this morning, what Trump, this afternoon, wherever you're tuning in around the world, what Trump isn't telling you about Syria. Now, I just shot a video. This will be a highly produced video that'll be coming out in a couple of hours, which I think is really going to rock the boat. Because, again, it's not being talked about. There's a total blackout on Raqqa. And what's going down at this very moment, as I'm bringing this a secretive message to you because it's not being aired publicly until we're ready. Remember how Trump told us that he's not going to telegraph what he does? When he hits ISIS hard or he takes over a country through an occupation, let's say, he's not going to tell you about it, he's just going to do it. That's what's going on right now. According to my sources that have been leaking to AMTV for the past several months, actually. Been collecting a lot of this information, maps of the planned breakup and disintegration of Syria, the Holy Land. Total biblical destruction. I'm not going to show you the map at this moment today. I will show it on the clip that we air in a couple of hours within reason, because I don't want to reveal my sources on who originally leaked this, but Trump is weighing his options. So let me explain this. Actions speak louder than words. Where was Rex Tillerson just a couple of days ago? Turkey. Ankara. Speaking with the president. Interesting. What were they talking about? Where is Jared Kushner right now? He might be on his way back now, but where was he yesterday? Oh, Iraq. First visit ever. What's he doing in the Levant? Just hanging out? Two very major diplomatic players, part of the Rex Tillerson, of course, part of Big Oil. Kushner, a young man that people like Jimmy Kimmel were making fun of last night, but they don't understand the truth. And even if they did, they're not going to tell you. They were taking some cheap shots at him. And I'm not saying I like Jared Kushner either. I mean, look, you look at the track record, you look at his father, who's been to prison for tax evasion, numerous other convicted crimes, his loose affiliation connections. I don't even know if it's loose. George Soros has invested in a lot of his real estate ventures, etc. I'm not saying I like the guy. But what we're seeing and what we have is a movement of the chess pieces at this very moment of time in a total darkness and blackout by the MSM, by the mainstream media. Nothing, not a peep. But wait a minute, there was so much talk about Syria. Remember that? I mean, we've been talking about this for years. People have short-term memory loss. They always remember the things that we get wrong. And believe me, I get things wrong. I'm not perfect. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm totally open and upfront about that. If we ever get something wrong, publish a retraction. One thing we've been 100% right about for over a decade is Syria, because we warned about Syria for a decade, that Obama would start a new war in this part of the world. He would begin airstriking. He would rip it apart. War would rage. Cities would be destroyed. The greater Iraq, Syria, what they call the Levant, would just be turned into dust, which is what it's become. There would be mass death. There would be murder. There would be destruction. There would be rape, which is exactly what we've gotten. Remember, for years, people said it was crackpot conspiracy theory until Barack Obama came on the mainstream media and was like, yep, we're bombing the crap out of Syria. Airstrikes. Yep, we're taking them out. I thought you were the anti-war Nobel Peace Prize winning president. See, none of them are. Nor is Trump. Now, we support Trump. I support Trump. I don't agree with everything he does. I don't agree with all of his high-level relationships, especially his crony relationships with Goldman Sachs advisors, etc. But I'm hoping at least, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, I hope that Trump makes the right decision here in Syria because he is weighing his options right now. He is in the war room, whether the mainstream media wants to report on this or not. Now, bombs have been constantly dropped and have been constantly dropped throughout the entire Obama administration and through Trump's administration. So that's going on. But what we're looking at here, as I break down in this video soon to be released to the public for the first time, is a total breakup and piecemealing of Syria. Where Trump, this is the options he's weighing. Breaking it up, giving it part of it to the Kurds, who the U.S. is using fighting Bashar al-Assad's defenses right now as allies, which is irritating Turkey. And one other reason Rex Tillerson's over there speaking with the president. Piecemealing part of it off to the Kurds, maybe giving a little bit to Turkey as well. It's kind of encroaching on its border. The United States maintaining control of the rest of it. Who knows? Maybe Assad still has some control. You know, it's kind of like Ukraine, right? The United States goes over, they topple the government through covert operations, they install a new puppet leader after axing the rightful sovereignty of Viktor Yanukovych. Putin steps in. The mainstream media sells it as a hit job, like Putin invaded Ukraine, when the contrary is true. And no, he didn't annex Crimea. The people voted with like a 90+% vote to join the Russian Federation after the toppling of the rightful Ukrainian government. I've said it a million times, as the equivalent of Putin coming in with his own selfish interests into Canada, overthrowing the rightful sovereign leadership of Canadians leaders, and the United States responding. It's exactly what's happened in Ukraine. So, here's the point. Russia's just kind of hanging out in the background right now. Putin is just waiting to see what happens, allowing the United States to not only become deeply invested in the country, but just kind of letting things play out before they make a move. And they will make a move. For anyone saying that Trump should just... Trump said this, and I talk about this in the video, for example. He said this when he was running during the presidential debates all over the mainstream media, that if Hillary Clinton was elected president of the United States and she implemented her no-fly zones in Syria, there would be World War III. That's what Trump said pretty much verbatim. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but pretty much said to a T. Hillary Clinton implements her no-fly zones, there will be World War III in Syria. Now suddenly there's been a change of the guard, a change in the narrative, the verbiage, and the semantics of what Donald Trump is saying. In fact, let's play this brief clip here. It's a real brief clip here up on the screen. So you can hear the audio. It's not me saying it, it's Trump. We'll go to here in a moment. I want you to hear what he says.
Focusing on Syria. Well, and you'll end up with her plan. You'll end up in World War III with Syria. You're gonna end up, Steve. You're gonna end up in World War III over Syria if we listen to Hillary Clinton. She's incompetent.
Go back.
Trump never shying away from bold statements.
What we should do is focus on ISIS. We should not be focusing on Syria. Well, and you'll end up with her plan. You'll end up in World War III with Syria. You're gonna end up, Steve. You're gonna end up in World War III over Syria if we listen to Hillary Clinton. She's incompetent.
Okay, so I just wanted to play that twice for you guys because obviously those are Trump's own words. So that's what he tells, and I agree, and that's what I think Trump should do. He should focus his attention on ISIS. I have no problem with Trump taking out ISIS. Now, I'm smart enough to realize who created ISIS. I know that the Barack Obama administration, through Hillary Clinton and their dealings in Libya and the gun running, not only is the U.S. covertly responsible for helping to foster and create the terrorist organization that is Al-Qaeda, otherwise playfully known as Al-Qaeda, but they're also directly responsible for ISIS, also playfully called, as I call it, the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. We're smart enough to understand that. If you're educated, you know that to be a fact, the truth. Of course, all this has been documented. This has all been declassified. Of course, Barack Obama, he's admitted it. Now, armed, funded the terrorist rebel groups on the ground. The same rebel terrorists on the ground that, by the way, were responsible for the Ghouta chemical attack that occurred in Syria, which the mainstream media tried to pin on Bashar al-Assad so it would provide reason and garner American diplomatic support to topple Assad. But that backfired. And one of the reasons it backfired is because of alternative media, because of you, because millions of us got the message out that that was a total lie. And the truth got out, and it was stopped. So the establishment had to go to Plan B, which is being carried out now. The agenda is the same. They still want to take out Assad. So what is my point here? The media is not covering it all. It's a total blackout. Behind closed doors, Trump is in the war room right now. That's why he's been positioning his chess pieces. He's positioned Jared in Iraq. He's positioned Tillerson in Turkey. He's being advised by his generals at this very moment on what to do. And it varies from piecemealing and breaking up and kind of just destroying it into a bunch of different pieces of the country, just like what we've seen all over the Middle East. I mean, who was Jared Kushner meeting with? The installed puppet new leader of Iraq. Right? That's what the United States does. They install their puppets. Same thing in Ukraine. It's what they want to do in Syria. I want to say it can be as little as that, but that's not little. That's enormous change and illegal action in this part of the world. But I'll say it, I guess. It can be as little as that. Or Trump is weighing a full-blown occupation with troops on the ground, which what will be needed if he wants to carry through with a lot of these options. He's going to need troops on the ground. So he's already been sending troops on the ground. Again, mainstream media has barely been reporting it. There's several thousand new troops that have been deployed just in recent days, in the past few weeks, hitting the ground in this part of the world. He can piecemeal it. He can break it apart. Again, I've got leaks here at AMTV I haven't gone public with. I'm going to show you guys a map later today with the special video that I put out when it's ready, when we cut it. He can do that. Or, Chris, what's the other option? Chris, what could Trump do? What's his other option? Well, the other option is allow Assad do the right thing and reclaim his country. Now, I'm not saying I support Assad, just like I'd never supported Muammar Gaddafi. I think these people are very bad men. However, things are a lot worse now than they were prior to the United States meddling in the affairs of these countries. It's a documented fact. 500,000 people are dead in Syria. This beautiful biblical land that is Syria has been completely destroyed. We'll probably show some drone aerial footage of this in the video that we cut later. Completely destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of people are dead, men, women, and children. These are not soldiers. These are innocent civilians. Millions have died as a result of the ground invasions in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. These countries it's total destruction. In addition to that, we have a new terror group in the form of ISIS that never even existed before up until the United States began their involvement, because after all, they created it, armed it, and funded it. We have people blowing themselves up in Europe who claim allegiance to ISIS, blowing themselves up in the United States and in other lands, ramming and running people over in 4x4s, using vehicles as weapons of war. Some of these inside jobs by the CIA, others not. We have attacks like the Boston bombing with the Saranoff brothers, where they go out and use, Martha Stewart pressure cooker and buy some nails at Home Depot to, dismember, maim, and kill a bunch of people. Things are far more bad. Things are far worse now than they ever were before. What people don't understand, they don't realize, Muammar Gaddafi, even though these people were tyrannical despot leaders, even though Assad, I'm sure, kills his own people. It's not like they don't do that here in the United States as well. They do. I'm not saying they're not despots, but they kept a lid on a lot of the sectarian violence, these warring factions, the sectarian warfare on the ground that we see now. They kept a lid on it because they were such violent leaders and rulers, to be frank with you guys. Now that they've been removed, or people like Assad have been stabilized, now you're seeing the consequence. And it's far worse than it ever was before. So, well, what's the other option, Christopher? What should you do? Well, Trump needs to take his own advice, in my opinion. Leave Syria, the country, out of it. Your focus should be on destroying, taking out, and eliminating ISIS completely. I'm fine with that. I have no problem with that. Yeah, go kill the terrorists, Trump. Do what you need to do. After all, we created it. It'll be pretty easy to shut it down, right? We know where it came from. We know who's been funding it. We know who armed it. Us. When I say us, I don't mean us here at AMTV. I mean the United States government. So it should be easy to stop. But then leave Syria alone. Give back Bashar al-Assad his rightful sovereign nation. Give him back his country. That would be the right thing to do. Here's the question, and I'm not saying Trump doesn't do that, although I don't think it's likely. The far more likely outcome and scenario here is that Trump's going to break it apart completely. Just like Iraq, going to do the same thing in Syria. Going to break it apart into warring factions to continue the campaign of destabilization, which is the agenda in the Middle East, Northern Africa, in perpetuity, infinite, perpetual war, death, and destruction. It's not about peace. So there's overwhelming themes here, right? The overwhelming theme is number one. I mean, this is the biggest overwhelming theme. This is a humanitarian crisis, which people should care about. I don't care if you're on the right, you're on the left, you're a moderate. You don't even care about politics. You should care about the lives that have been lost. The millions of people that have been slaughtered as a result of this warmongering machine here in the United States, along with her allies. It has been destroying and ripping apart these beautiful, biblical, historic lands just to feed their own devices, right? This is what the military-industrial complex, multi-trillion-dollar industrial complex does. It's what they do. So that's the overwhelming theme, is just the mass death. And I'm not going to show you all the images of the children slaughtered, because that would be inappropriate. But you can go look them up if you want. They're pretty brutal. If you can handle it, you can stomach those kinds of things. We're not going to show any of that, but again, that's the overarching theme. The second theme is the reason the U.S. government is implementing this terror, talk about terrorism, all over the world, and in this specifically this part of the world, is protect the petrodollar, a dollar created, I've said this a gazillion times, from nothing, backed by nothing, printed, not even worth the toilet paper it's printed on, which is backed by fear, war, death, murder, destruction, and what I would like to call, or sum up in summation, destabilization. That's the agenda. People go, why are things so violent in this part of the world? Well, that's the agenda. It's not peace. We're not trying to bring people together. What we're doing is attempting to toppling governments through military force and then installing puppets friendly to the West. So Trump has a number of options on the table, and this is what makes this story so serious, is that, you see, when the mainstream media is talking about something, when they're doing countless report on Syria, and you'll start to hear this shortly, I would almost guess, instinctually, within the next 48 hours, it'll become a story, and you'll see it all over CNN, all over Fox, all over MSNBC. But you're only going to get the story after the bombs have gone off. What did Trump say leading up to his election? He's not going to tell you what he's doing behind closed doors. He's not going to telegraph it. He's just going to do it. So what I'm playing with in my own mind right now, and I'm seeing here on our screen, Hegelian dialectic, of course, they created the problem, which hence spawned the reaction, and then they provide the solution on a silver platter. This is what we're getting in Iraq. This is what we're getting in Syria. This is what we're getting all over the Middle East. This is what we get with the brain-mongering, I'll say, psychological warfare of the American people through these propaganda campaigns, etc. As Trump is weighing all these options in the war room today, of which I think the most likely outcome is a piecemealing and total fragmentation. Assad, the country itself, displacement of the people. And another major theme that I didn't mention is the engineered migration crisis, which has been engineered for a reason to destabilize sovereign nations in Europe and also here in the United States, which is a part of that George Soros agenda, right? That's why he funds all these campaigns. So we have the humanitarian crisis of the lives lost, of course. We have also the humanitarian crisis of all the peaceful and violent migrants infiltrating into different parts of the world, primarily Europe and the United States, to seek refuge, to feed off the system, but also to breed terror. Because after all, U.S. actions in this part of the world have only escalated and bred the hatred and terrorism, created ISIS that has now come to the United States that is blowing people's heads off. Another overarching theme. But I thought we were at war against all this. See, when you really understand things, you'll understand that this is what these people actually want. Again, the agenda is a global order. They achieved the global order through the destabilization campaigns, efforts in this part of the world, and also by destroying sovereign nations, not just in Iraq and Afghanistan, not just in Syria, but also principally the United States and European countries, so that they can be strung up in an ordered fashion. Russia and her allies, China, of which, again, none of this is a coincidence. Donald Trump is meeting with Xi Jinping Thursday, Friday at the Mar-a-Lago golf resort, of which Trump owns. All this is going down now. So Putin's a master tactician. Now, I think we upgraded with Trump, obviously. He's a lot smarter than Obama. I mean, Obama was a total idiot, total stooge. So we've had an upgrade. But we're playing with a very dangerous man. I mean, Putin is former KGB. This guy is an intelligence warrior. He knows what he's doing. He's been killing the U.S. media efforts regarding the propaganda war, for example, and his housing of Edward Snowden, another example, and embracing WikiLeaks data dumps and all these kinds of things. So he's such a master. He's mastered the game. What is he doing? They haven't even showed their hand yet. They're hanging out in the background. They will act. And if Trump does decide to piecemeal Syria up, which is probably the most likely outcome, or move forward with a full-blown occupation, which I also think is likely and could happen, we are going to get a violent, tactical, meaningful, and strategic military response from the big angry bear, Russia, Putin and his government, his ally China, Iran, and maybe even North Korea, as we're being fear-mongered in the mainstream media right now with Kim Jong-un, which is just a proxy for these same people in these same countries. That's the outcome. Do not underestimate Syria. That's why we've harped on it for a decade. It's why we were the first here, and I can say that because it's the truth. We're the first to warn you about it, the first to tell you, stay on your toes, pay attention. Obama is going to airstrike Syria. He's going to do it. This is World War III. Do not underestimate what's going on in this part of the world. And not that you should live in fear, because I'm not a believer in that at all. I'm a believer in empowerment and preparation and knowledge and ideas. That's true power. That's true freedom. And that's true liberation. But in a certain respect, you should fear these events more when they're not being talked about, when there's a total blackout as part of the mainstream media cartel, when it's completely under the radar, because that's when the real stuff is going down. This is what's being negotiated. And is Trump, here's the question, is he smart enough to understand the real repercussions of his actions in this part of the world? And does he understand the legitimate, I think he does. Here's the thing. I think he knows what's coming. War. He has said so himself, that, referring to Hillary Clinton up leading to the election, that, look, Russia isn't a country that just talks. He says something like this. These are people capable of nuclear strikes. It's not North Korea that's developing the technology and, launches a couple chicken crap missiles out to the Sea of Japan, as we saw a week ago, allegedly, even if that's to be believed to be true. Who knows? Putin is a man of action, tactics, a man who has access and full capability to knock the crap out of its enemies. with nuclear force. So Trump knows this. That's my point here. And this is what we were discussing even before the broadcast, which is why we started, about 15, 20 minutes late. I'm just processing all this information because I have to figure out how to meaningfully relay this to the people of the world. So where they understand it. They understand all the moving pieces. They understand the strategy. They understand the options, which I think I hopefully just explained that Donald Trump is weighing. You can see the chess pieces again. Why is Jared Kushner hanging out in Iraq? Why is Rex Tillerson in Ankara? Why was he just there? Why is he speaking about NATO? All these things and where it's headed. See, that's the most important thing, where it's headed. Again, people have short-term memory loss. They only remember what you get wrong. They never remember what you get right. Just like Pizzagate. Nailed that 100%. Told you it was a trap. People hated it. I got thousands of emails and hate mail. What's happening now? Alex Jones pretty much being sued. There's a multi-million-dollar loss. The whole platform might go down. Ben Swan also took the cheese. Where did he go? He's total blackout. And I like Ben Swan. I have, nothing against any of these people. But when people don't like what you have to say, when there's a emotional gut instinct reaction of hate and kind of like almost like a violent, like, F you, I don't like what you're saying, that's actually how I know we're actually telling the truth, honestly. I knew the same thing in and around over the last decade. We've been talking about Syria. People called me a fearmonger, crackpot, lunatic, conspiracy theorist, and no, I was just inventing things, pulling it from my ass, up until the time Barack Obama started the invasion and started the bombing. Then it was, and then you know what people say after that? Same thing with Pizzagate. Oh, it was predictable. Oh, we could all see it coming. Oh, everyone knew that at the time. No, you didn't. I can prove it. You go take a look at the old videos, and I've got dozens of videos on Syria, for example, predicting wars, a flashpoint for World War III, but people ignore them now because now it's obvious. Just like they want to ignore our Pizzagate revelation, of which I warned specifically on that day in December 2016, up and in around the election. It's a trap. Be careful. I was talking about this behind closed doors. Again, none of this is public right now. Only you in the underground. See, a lot of the content that I present here in the underground never goes public, ever, because people they're just not ready intellectually. They're not ready for it. It's too much. The reaction's too strong. Let's go to Pizzagate for a minute. Real quick. So we were right about it, right? I mean, that's not I told you so. It's just that's what's happened. Major platforms have been attacked as a result. Some shut down. Ben Swan's dark. I think he got suspended for a couple of weeks. I think he might be back on the air, but his digital platform's gone. Totally deleted. Alex Jones, he's pretty much said this, so it's not conjecture. An itch. Massive lawsuit, public apology, read by his attorneys. People have been fired. So it's not that I told you so. It's just what's happened, facts. I want you to chew on this. And I won't say this publicly. I just want you to chew on this, those of you tuning in that are truly enlightened. Where did the Pizzagate trap come from? WikiLeaks. Chew on that for a moment. Because many of you probably want to know, how did I know? Right? How did some dude in his, I joke, my basement here, how did I know? What are some other big stories that I did on Julian Assange and WikiLeaks in the past? Well, literally pretty much entirely through last year. What did I talk about? Go back into my archive. I talked about infiltration. Julian Assange going dark. Remember that? Remember how he went dark? No proof of life. Somebody had hacked the Twitter account. Social media communications changed, based, if you look at historically what WikiLeaks have been putting out up to a certain point, and then all of a sudden, during a flurry and confluence of events in and around the election, things changed. People went dark. strange things started being leaked out, including Pizzagate. And again, I know this is an overriding point here, just like I said in the video. I'm not denying child trafficking, all these hideous crimes, Dennis Hastert being a convicted felon, for example, former Speaker of the House, convicted pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein, convicted pedophile. Again, those are all facts. I'm not denying child trafficking or anything like that. Those are the allegations. You always got to be so careful. These people have been to jail. Those are just the facts. But again, back to how did I know? Well, you go back to the source. Who planted Pizzagate? WikiLeaks. But you just said it was a trap, Christopher, and it was because it's been proven that it was a trap. Oh, starting to make sense. You see how the CIA killed two birds with one stone? By infiltrating WikiLeaks, which is what happened. They knew alternative media, people like Alex Jones and others, Ben Swann and others, would take that cheese. Kills two birds with one stone. Number one, they can shut down alternative media. They can create infighting among alternative media. People get sued, like Alex Jones. People start turning against each other, warring, all these kinds of things. In addition to that, you've muddied the waters and red-pilled WikiLeaks. Now all of a sudden they can't be trusted. They kill two birds with one stone. Now here was the error. And this is why a lot of smart people, Alex Jones and others, I think even Ben Swann and others, took the bait. These people are smart. Here's what they didn't see. Everybody trusts WikiLeaks. Like everything that comes from that source is 100% truth. They don't even question it. It's like, oh, they've got an amazing track record, so anything that comes out, we'll run with it, which is what they did. But they never question whether or not some of the leaks might not be genuine. Maybe 99% of them are, but somehow the CIA has infiltrated and they got out Pizzagate, for example. And then it gets picked up, which I could smell it from a mile away. Instinctually, they took the bait, closes down a lot of these operations, puts the main, alternative media under attack, shut down, all these kinds of things with the agenda. What is the agenda? And in addition to that, now people can't even trust WikiLeaks because now they're starting to understand, yeah, that crazy guy in his basement was right. It is a trap. There's even a lot of people that were, spearheading. I'm not going to name their names because I just don't want to give them any exposure because I don't have to, even though we're speaking privately to you right now. There's people that spearheaded the whole Pizzagate thing that even backtracked on that recently and are like, oh, yeah, I'm not going to do it anymore. Let someone else do it. So many people took the bait. It's just it's so ridiculous. And some use it for PR. I'm sure Ben Swann, when he pulled it too, and I think Ben Swann's a good guy, but I'm sure when he was running with it, he was like, well, this is going to be really popular. No one else is talking about it, so I'm going to air it. But he didn't do all this fact-checking. And people ask me, hey, were you following what's going on, Ben Swann? Yeah, of course. I know everything that's going on. Yep. That's why I put out a video, and everyone should have been paying attention when I said what I said. Just like, and we'll probably put some of this out to the public, what I'm telling you now, people should pay solid attention to what I'm saying now. Not because I'm a genius, but because I know what I'm talking about. War. Syria. Trump in the war room right now. Total media blackout. I would expect humbly in the next few days you'll begin to see signs of the mainstream media picking up this story. After they start picking it up, it will become probably the biggest headline of our lifetime. I'm not even exaggerating. The biggest headline of our lifetime, Syria. And the new war Trump is fighting. Will, here's the question, it be just a piecemealing of the country fragmented into a million pieces, of which has been many of the leaks sent to us here at AMTV? Or will it be a full-blown occupation? And how will Donald Trump react? since we're kind of just running the privacy rounds today, which I appreciate, and appreciates all you hear, here's another story I probably won't release publicly. Because, again, it's too much. It's too much. I know too much, honestly. That's not my ego speaking, but I know way too much. Let's get to this bullshit, divisive, planted story. You know what I'm talking about. Front page of the Drudge Report right now. Oh, boiled rice, it says. There's a picture of Susan Rice in John Podesta. Oh, how convenient. Well, there's a total blackness, darkness, and blackout on what I just covered on Syria, and we're going to have really specialized reports coming very soon after this 2-hour broadcast today. What is everyone focused on, including conservative media and Drudge? Boiled rice. Oh, so what's the big unveiling here, Drudge? What's the big story? What's the big headline? Oh, more divisive rhetoric, divide and conquer, right versus left, and an alleged admission now that the radical left spied on Trump. Oh my gosh, what a major story. Oh yeah, that should be the major headline all across CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and even Drudge. And InfoWars, I'm sure. I'm not even looking at that right now, but I'm sure that's probably their main headline. Convenient. Anyone talking about Syria? Nope. Anyone talking about the breakup piecemeal in the country? Nope. Anyone talking about Trump in the war room right now, considering full-scale troops on the ground? Nope. But they are talking about this Susan boiled rice story, because that's the agenda. In fact, even a plant, and I'll say it, of which I've invited on the show, but crickets, Mr. Cernovich, who has a very large Twitter following, who came out of nowhere, by the way. The guy didn't even exist up until like 12 months ago, but now he's just doing the rounds. 60 Minutes calls him. He says publicly that he's got sources at every mainstream media organization on the planet, according to him. And he also leaked the bombshell. This is all to be believed. He leaked the bombshell on this whole boiled rice situation. Yeah, he specialized access, comes out of nowhere, lifted up by the mainstream media, even though they did pretty much an attack piece on him. He just came out of nowhere. Don't ask questions, guys. Don't. See, I've been doing, and again, open invitation for Cernovich to come on the program. I like a lot of what he's doing, right? I mean, I can see it for what it is. It's just divisive right-left paradigm politics, and that's how and why I know the truth. You see, I'm a real guy, folks. You know, people even question me. They're like, "Hey, is this guy CIA? Like, what's the deal?" No, I'm a real dude. I'm a real guy, and I know who the other real dudes are. People like Aaron over at Storm Cloud's Gathering, probably one of the, trying to think of the appropriate words, but very talented messenger of truth, let's just call him. The real guys, those guys are under attack. They're barely surviving like us here at AMTV, Alternative Media Television, or they're out of business. Like Storm, who, by the way, really doesn't even do videos anymore, rarely. He does a few of them from time to time, but can't. Because he's real. He didn't come out of nowhere. He's not on 60 Minutes at on a whim. Do you guys understand what I'm saying here? It's another reason I'm not going to probably release this publicly. This whole idea and war on fake news. People aren't ready for it, so I can't air it publicly. Even these guys like Cernovich telling you, this is my suspicion at least. And I'll ask him flat out if he comes on the show. You know, respect his time on the air and those kinds of things, but I'd ask him flat out. Retweet the tweet I put out earlier. Again, crickets, haven't heard shit. Excuse me, I guess I got to maintain FCC compliance, I guess, on the radio, but shoot. Even the guys like Cernovich, and I'm not just pinpointing Cernovich, although I'm using him as an example, talking about quote-unquote fake news on the side of truth, themselves are fake and aren't real. And I can't air that publicly because if I did, there'd be a giant backlash. Why? Because most people aren't going to ask any questions around any of this. But see, I know just how I knew with Pizzagate. Because I'm a real guy. I do this professionally for a living. 24/7, 7 days a week around the clock. I know who's legit, who's real, and who ain't. And I could smell a turd and spot one from a mile away. Just like I spotted and smelled a stinky, disgusting, rotting turd on a sidewalk was in the WikiLeaks dump that made up Pizzagate. I'm smelling one now. But Christopher, why would they do this? Why would they put people like Cernovich there and use them as a plant if they're working for CIA in these intelligence operations? For all the reasons I just talked about. To muddy the waters, to cloud the pictures, to discredit. To put out 60 Minutes pieces like the one Cernovich just put out, which I also tweeted him before I went on there, said they're going to do a hit piece on you. Again, I just heard critics. And what did they do? Or crickets. What did they do? Did a hit piece. These guys aren't even real. And it's open invitation to prove me wrong, Cernovich. I mean, honestly, man. Same thing with Milo. I'm the only guy out there that even laid a veil of a criticism of Milo at all. No one else even, nothing. You know, I pointed out, like, this guy's a paid agitator. He's funded by Breitbart, which is funded by Wall Street, which is funded by Goldman Sachs. That's where the money comes from. Mercer, a philanthropist within the conservative movement who also funded Breitbart, I'm pretty sure, also funded, was like the largest donor of Trump. Follow the money. Again, they want to muddy the waters. They want to red pill even the community, like all of us. And the reason why I'm only revealing this to you, a lot of this, and there's going to be more and more days like this where I'm just revealing to you because I can't say these things publicly. I'm just looking at pictures of Andrew Breitbart. I really admired the man, and he was killed. He was murdered. You guys don't know, but the government took him out. According to my sources and what I know, and having followed, he was assassinated, 100%. Wasn't just a heart attack. He was killed. They took him down. He knew too much. What makes it difficult, and I've got a great piece. I think we had to take it from YouTube. Actually, we did. Yeah, they shut that one down too. I think it's only on demand, actually. Well, it's called Andrew Breitbart Tribute. It's probably one of the better videos we've done. Just to fill you in on a little bit of the story, he was walking from a bar. This was just a couple days prior. He said he would end Barack Obama's administration for good. He also knew about John Podesta and the whole you-know-what Pizzagate stuff. He's on record tweeting that, saying that in some rogue interviews. He just came back from a bar. He died. It was a heart attack. Sure. And then after his, this is in the piece. You guys watch the full thing for yourself. I won't give it all away. And then in the piece, his coroner doing, the report, he died too. You can't even make this stuff up, guys. So he was assassinated. People aren't, it's like the Matrix, people aren't ready for the truth because as somebody that knows too much, I have to think so deeply about how I present something so that people recognize, understand, and can reason with the truth, I guess. It's like the whole idea of what is fake news. Well, what is fake news? I mean, look, by the way, we didn't get a phone call. And see, I know what Cernovich would say. This is what he would say if I called him out on air. He'll be like, well, I've got a huge following, Christopher, on Twitter. I've got major influence, bro. That's what he would say. That's why I'm on 60 Minutes. Well, my YouTube platform's larger than yours. I didn't get a phone call. No phone call from 60 Minutes. No ring. Believe me, I checked. There was no voicemail, but you got called. And again, no one had even heard of you up to like a year ago. No one. One thing that you did call 100% correct was Trump's election, which is also very interesting. You see how it just... This is the challenge for me, for AMTV, is how to present this type of information tactfully, where people, they don't want to hear what I just said. We're talking violent opposition. Just like there was violent opposition to my assessment, forewarning of Pizzagate, just like there was violent opposition to my forewarning presentation of what's been going on in Syria, just like there's been, and continues to this day, violent opposition to what we're facing here in this country with an economic crisis far worse than what we experienced in 2008, 2009. Frankly, just like this was behind closed doors at the time, because this is about the time I started the channel, and one of the reasons I did when I went to family and friends and clients and warned them as a money manager who managed tens of millions of dollars, warned them of what was coming in 2008 and 2009. I told them to get out of the market. Violent opposition, no one wanted to hear it. People don't want to hear the truth. The more truth you're presenting, the more violent opposition there is. That's how you know it's the truth. The herd is always wrong, always, always. And the more people think that they know something, especially the more the masses think that they know something, the more you know they don't know anything. You know, just because everybody believes the same lie doesn't make it true. Just because everybody's been indoctrinated into, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of, I pledge allegiance, and then right when you graduate high school, as our producer Alex here brought up to me yesterday, and I thought was really poignant, what do they do right after you graduate, the moment you graduate? Join the Army. Fight for us, fight for your country. I pledge, and then they ask you to fight and die on the front lines. In these same wars, these young kids don't even know why they're fighting and dying in them. And many are some of our biggest supporters here at AMTV, those of you that fought overseas, came from places like Iraq and Afghanistan and other places around the world that were a part of that military-industrial complex, woke up, realized it was a scam, woke into the truth, and what happens? You come back, you're reintegrated back to society, and how do I say this bluntly? A lot of you have problems. And that sounds kind of like, I don't mean it the way it just came out there, but but it's like totally honest. But it goes for all of us, myself included. Like when you understand the truth, you've got problems now because you're not a part. You're enlightened, and you're not the masses believing the lie anymore. You're different. All of us are, including the guy bringing this broadcast to you. So the major narrative right now on boiled rice, and it's just a total illusion. It really is a worthless story. And, you know, when I see the Drudge Report to it and buying into it, I, again, know this guy is smart enough, Drudge, to understand what he's doing. Same thing with Milo, and even Andrew Breitbart, who I have a tremendous respect for, was famous for this. 99% of his time was engaged in doing what? Divide and conquering. Right versus left. Pointing a finger at the radical leftists. Same thing Milo does. Why do you think they hired Milo and bankrolled him in the amount of tens of millions of dollars with his national, I can't even say it on air, tour? Because all he is a clown. He's a paid agitator. He's there to divide and conquer. And he's funded by Breitbart, Goldman Sachs, the Mercers, and others. Just follow the money. And then follow it straight to the White House. Or we got Trump chilling, hanging out with Stephen Bannon and Mnuchin and other Goldman Sachs cronies. That's where it comes from. Then how in God's green earth did you support Trump, Christopher? Well, because it's so complex. Trump's smart. It's like many of you tuning in. People don't want to hear it, but yeah, he's playing a very intricate Orwellian game. If he wasn't playing to some of this, he wouldn't even be in office. No one gets into office, for example. Look at Ron Paul. who runs on a platform of ending the Federal Reserve. You just don't get in. You don't get in. You see, you need them. Same reason Trump did. That's why most in the admin, a part of his camp, Goldman Sachs. Trump never would have got in if he ran on people politics in the criminal Federal Reserve. You know, shut it down immediately. I mean, that's what Ron Paul wanted. How far did that get? Didn't get him far. You know what happened? What did the establishment do last minute? They co-opted his entire movement, millions of dollars in fundraising and donations and all these kinds of things, people pouring money into the movement. Oh, it's the movement with Ron Paul. And I've got a lot of respect for Ron Paul. And what did they do? They cornered him at the very last minute, forced his hand, and who did he endorse? Neocon establishment multi-millionaire Mitt Romney. Pro-Wall Street, pro-Goldman Sachs. Dude. Pro-private equity guy. Neocon. That's what happened. You get it? Do you understand? You see why Trump's done what he's done? It's pretty darn clear. So, in summation, as we close hour one down, as I think we've just got a few minutes before we start the second hour, those are my two major headlines, all private, all on demand, exclusively for you guys. Thank you for your tremendous support. $4.95 a month, $49.95 a year. Bombshell story coming on Syria. What Trump isn't telling you about Syria, Raqqa specifically. Just dug into the fake news component, Orwellian web, Pizzagate, WikiLeaks. Again, in your spare time, I just want you to do this. Think about what I told you about WikiLeaks. Where did Pizzagate come from? WikiLeaks. Uh-oh. What does that mean about WikiLeaks? You see how dark and deep of a dive this goes? People do not want to hear what I just said. And maybe we'll test the waters, and maybe I'll clip out a few of these, maybe. But we'll have to kind of carefully select what I put out to the public. Watch and learn the opposition, and watch the violent reaction to what I just said, if, and probably not, if I decide to put any of this out to the public. When we come back, give us about 15 minutes or so, I'll be running through the news on a tear, all the other major headlines that I haven't covered already. Thank you. Hard hitting it in your face. Peace.